Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the blog post for Yama, the Master of Packs. This is going to be a very soon upcoming dual end game boss for old school RuneScape, and this is particularly exciting for me because I have previous industry experience with multiplayer games, and the biggest takeaway probably that I've learned for what makes games successful in the multiplayer space is the social aspect of it. When you are encouraged to be social with other players in the game, this leads to ultimately the best experiences because people form like these social bonds, and you can't really replicate that in a solo experience. It's just something different. So I'm glad because they came out with something called Royal Titans, which is the first instance of content. Let me wind back. So they came out with something called Royal Titans. Actually, I'm going to even go further back. So I want to talk about the social gameplay of RuneScape and how non-existent it is because it is not incentivized. So most of the content in RuneScape is soloable. Let's actually pull up the money making guide. So the wiki has a list of all the fun, most costly stuff. And then we have Coliseum, a solo piece of content at the top. We have TOA specifically solo 500 as second. We have Theater of Blood, which is not soloable for most people, typically, which is a group content experience as number 3. We have next in a duo, and the only reason it's in a duo is because it's more efficient than more people, so less social incentive, but still at least 2 people. You have Vardorvis, which is solo. You have Whisperer, which is solo. Chambers, which is also solo. Fasani's is solo. Next in a bigger team, but it's limited to 3, so it's not a high incentive. Leviathan is solo, TD is solo, solo, etc, etc. Most of this stuff is solo content, and that is not that great because it really discourages people from interacting together, specifically in something known as a massive multiplayer online RPG. And it's kind of weird that you're incentivized to do solo content. So I'm glad that Jagex is taking the play to make things more social. Previously, we had something called Royal Titans come out. Royal Titans is an absolute banger, 10 out of 10 content. Mostly, maybe 9.5 out of 10 content. It's a slapper. And it is a piece of content where duo is actually just straight up the play, where having friends is the play, where going with multiple people and not doing solo is better than going for solo. Now, I did previously mention that there is a group piece of content known as Theater of Blood as the 3rd highest moneymaker for old school, which is good, but it comes at the inability to do solo for most players in the game, except like 10 players. Maybe 10 is an exaggeration, but over 99% of the player base is not soloing the Theater of Blood. And I think that is a shame. I think the way they can balance things conceptually with old school experiences and social gameplay is something like Royal Titans, because in Royal Titans you can actually solo the experience. It's just that on average you will not be as efficient as going into a duo, but it will be comparable. And I think the fact that it is comparable is a bit of why I said before that Royal Titans is like a 9.5 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, is because they really should double down on this idea that if you're going to be doing content in old school RuneScape that has a social incentive, it should just always be better to do social group content as opposed to a solo experience. The fact that it is comparable here is not in line with the idea of promoting group gameplay. The issue I have with Theater of Blood is that there is no solo option, but for Royal Titans there is. However, you're still seeing people be incentivized to go into Royal Titans with a partner. And now they are going to be introducing, as a surprise never talked about before like a couple weeks ago, the endgame dual boss fight known as Yama, Master of Packs. And this is particularly exciting because if they follow a similar formula to Royal Titans, this will have a lot of forced social interaction in the game which is an overall better gameplay experience for everybody. Now, granted, that impact is diminished because it is in-game, so it doesn't apply to everybody, but to me, I find this particularly great because it is endgame, so it definitely appeals to my bias. Royal Titans is like the mid-game version of this thing, which we've seen to be a huge success. And I hope that in the future, especially with something like a Raids 4 that they announced will be coming in 2026, which is quite a bit of time for now, but whatever, regardless, in between and including the future raid, I feel like the approach from a game design perspective of encouraging social interaction is the move, but they should double down on it. They should not make it so that if you want to solo it and you have better gear, it's just better for you to do so than to take someone along with you. Likewise, the unfortunate thing for Royal Titans is that they have a contribution system. The contribution system is a bit lame because it takes the drop rate and it weighs it in terms of who dished out the most damage in an encounter. And that makes it so that if I am maxed in terms of gear and DPS and I want to go dual Royal Titans, I'm going to be more incentivized to take someone who isn't a pure, for example, who really needs the upgrades from this encounter. They need that more than a main does. I'm going to be going with someone who is better kitted out with better stats because it is more efficient for me to do so. However, I feel like they should not be penalizing a pure or someone who is not as far along in the game as someone who is completely end game just because they don't do as much damage. Because it would be great to just like take a noob along with you, right? Everyone likes that, like a mentor-mentee type of thing. So so the solo aspect of being comparable to a duo, as well as the contribution system, is why I'd give Royal Titans like a 9.5 or 9 out of 10 in terms of an update. Otherwise, it is an absolute banger, no complaints. Now for Yama, who knows? Who knows if it is going to be contribution based, but it's going to be a duo boss, and they have rewards, and including an unannounced best in slot reward, which I believe is true. Please don't say I made it up.
In short, endgame boss, duo focus, new best in slot rewards.
Okay, so I thought that there were best in slot rewards, but let's get into it. Maybe that was just a misspeak, or maybe they mean best in slot and other things. Anyway, so yeah, Yama is a duo boss, and then it is coming in the spring. This was announced at RuneFest for the first time. No one knew this was coming, which is very exciting. So it's really cool that we're getting a huge gameplay update that is coming up relatively soon. Can we solo it? You can. Yama won't go easy on you. In all seriousness, we want Yama to be efficient, worthwhile to take on in a duo, but we're not going to force you to duo. This is perfect. This is exactly how it should be, but it should just be straight up better to do this in a duo than it is in a solo. So hopefully they are actually accurate with this statement. Okay, so Yama is endgame. It's going to be a duo boss, and there's going to be like contracts you could take to make the fight even harder, which can even make it similar to Awakened bosses from Desert Treasure 2. So the Awakened bosses in Desert Treasure 2 are legitimately difficult. They're some of the hardest pieces of content in the entire game. And that was for like a solo encounter. So if you have to coordinate with another person, then oh yeah, that's going to be a challenge for sure. And I'm looking forward to it. The coordination is going to have to be absolutely top tier. Let's see the rewards. We're having a depth charge upgrade. And for the depth charge upgrade, you're going to be able to gain special attack from 2 enemies per cast instead of 1. This is absolutely crazy actually, because you'll probably be using Arceus almost anywhere that you can in terms of the Arceus spellbook. Right now, as it works, is every minute you cast something called Depth Charge, or you can, and when you kill an enemy, you get 15% special attack back, which is nice over a period of time, but it's not much. However, with this upgrade, it actually might break a bunch of metas, because you're going to be able to get 30% special attack back, which is equivalent to doing 1 Burning Claw special. And the interesting thing for me here with Depth Charge is ZCB, I think, is going to be a lot more useful in a bunch of places, because you get almost half of the special attack for a ZCB right away every minute, which means you could use a ZCB like every 2 minutes without a light bear. And that's kind of neat. That's kind of crazy. A ZCB goes pretty hard. Who knows where else this will be used? Just having like flat 30% special attack every minute just from a spell might empower Lightbearer, or it might just make it very not worth taking anymore. In like Tombs of Amaskid, for example, you might see people just not even really use the Lightbearer when they could just bring Soul Runes instead and use this spell with the upgrade. That's going to be crazy. Yeah, there's going to be something called a Surge Potion, which is consumable. You're going to need an Herb Lore requirement. It's untradeable once you make it, but all the items are tradable to actually make it. But once you make it, the end result is untradeable. This is an interesting one because it says once every 5 minutes, you can sip from the Surge Potion to restore 25% of your special attack energy off rip, which might have crazy implications for PvP. For PvM, it could, depending on if you want to take an inventory slot and how many doses you get as well. I don't really see anything about doses, if it's going to be a 2-dose potion, if it's going to be a 1-dose potion, or if it's going to be a 4-dose potion, because a 4-dose potion is probably worth it depending. It's going to be great for things like world records are going to be broken, for the combat achievement speed times, for all of those. I'm not sure how to feel about this because it feels not that impactful in a big encounter to do this once every 5 minutes. But if you're going for 1 kill specifically, this feels like it could be very good. This could also be really good at Theater of Blood because of Berserk for the Dawnbringer phase. Dawnbringer is like a weapon that does a crazy amount of damage to Berserk's shield, way above anything else you can use. And its special attack is 35%. And this will give you 25% back, so that could be really useful, but really only for the endgame people. I'm not really sure how I feel because it's like once every 5 minutes. Like I'm thinking of this from the perspective of myself when it comes to PvMing. Like, do I really care enough to use this every 5 minutes? If, for example, you're farming a boss, you're like killing it every minute or 3. It's like, okay, does it really benefit? In something like the Inferno, does this really benefit over having like a Sandfew? It feels like this is a crazy thing for PvP if you can use it in PvP, which they don't state that you can't use it in PvP. That would be crazy. And we'll just have to see where other use cases for this are in PvM. Unfortunately, me personally, I don't really have a particular opinion on this because it's hard for me to come up with like, yes, this is exactly where I want to be using such a thing. Yeah, I don't know, because like every minute you can get 30% from a def charge if you're doing like solo PvM stuff. That like completely outclasses the Surge Potion, so it's, yeah, I'm not sure. However, actually, the Surge Potion does pair well with another item that is going to be pulled for release later in this blog, so we'll talk about it. There's another item we're about to talk about that costs 25% special attack to use, so you can just top off with one of these potions. So that's actually probably where you will be using this. Also, it's worth noting that 25% is useful in Tombs of Amaskid if you want to get like another Voidwaker spec, or if you want to get another Claw spec, or if you want to get another DDS spec without the Adrenaline potion. Then you could just pop this on again, extra DDS, which could be useful in a lot of places actually, but not enough to really warrant carrying this stuff around. You also need 81 Herb Lore, which is a thing, and I guess they're like pushing mains to skill more, which I don't necessarily disagree. It's just annoying for me because I don't like skilling, but it's probably a good thing that they're going in this direction. There's also something called a Cosmic Catalyst. Cosmic Catalysts are tradable, stackable drops from Yama that allow you to make a new combination rune. So long as you have 90 rune crafting, you'll be able to combine Cosmic and Soul Runes into a Cosmic Soul Rune, which who knows what this is going to be called, but why this is important is that you need 5 runes to properly use the Arceus spellbook for harder PvM. For example, you need Blood, Cosmic, Fire, Death, and Soul Runes. 5 types of runes to be able to cast Thralls and Death Charge. And because Death Charge is going to be turbo busted for all PvM encounters basically, you are going to want to take all 5 runes. However, a Divine Rune pouch that currently exists in the game only holds up to 4 rune slots. So having a 5th rune slot being able to be combined into an existing rune, that's going to be really desirable for everyone who PVMs basically at a high level or like a slightly above mid-tier level. And I hope the Cosmic Soul runes will be tradable, because your boy is not going to be getting 90 rune crafting. Miss me with that. But like, if it's untradable, then I might actually consider it. But I hope not, though. I'd rather just waste an inventory space. So hopefully these soul runes are tradable. Rune crafters are going to have a very nice time. And this will also make Yama consistently profitable, because if people are able to get a hold of these runes, they will be using it. So this is a fat W in terms of making this content consistently profitable, much more than demon tiers from the other blog post we covered about delve rewards. So Abyssal Worms, what is this? It's just worms. Hold on. Handful of Abyssal Worms. These worms increase the rate which you catch anglerfish. Enjoy. Yeah. What's there to say to me? That doesn't really apply to me. I mean, honestly, I feel like with the current rate of anglerfish, it's probably faster to just kill Leviathan and loot the anglerfish that it drops instead of fishing your own. But what do I know? Anglerfishes are an already AFK fishing activity, so it'll be useful for you, I guess, if you're super late endgame with fishing. Equipment rewards. Also, are these tradable? I imagine they'll be tradable, but who knows? And now the big stuff, which is crazy because like depth charge is honestly the gem colossal huge potential upgrade from this entire encounter is depth charge, frankly. However, we also have equipment rewards. So we have the soul armor, and it's a side grade to Torva. I'm still looking for where they see where the best in slot upgrades are, because this is just like a side grade. It has less strength bonus than Torva, but technically it is a best in slot slash armor, which is like the first of its kind besides like Vesta, if I recall correctly. I'm not entirely, no, there are other small slash accuracies like in Barb Assault maybe. I'm pretty sure this exists, but the slash accuracy on this is crazy, and the difference in melee strength is only 6. So right now the scythe was memed heavily before, and it was, I bought mine at like 600 mil, which is like yay me, I guess. Now it's 1.8 bill, 1.9 bill. It's almost max cash, which is crazy. And that's because Scythe got a lot more use cases with updates that happened over like the past year in old school RuneScape. And it had a buff for its accuracy, and that made it very viable in a lot of circumstances. And now with additional slash accuracy, the Scythe, its weakness is that it has to attack big targets and it is not as accurate. So now we're going to have this side grade that is going to be really, really good in places specifically where the defense of what you're fighting is relatively high, to where the strength bonus you lose out on the Scythe is actually overcome by the accuracy you gain from this soul armor. It's worth knowing that there is no set effect and that it's just stats. So it's just an increase of slash and a decrease of strength. It's also a bit interesting in that it is, oh, they actually have a stats breakdown here. So the interesting bit is that the stab defense is lower. So kind of feels like we're going to be getting some stab encounters similar to the Delve boss that I was speculating before. And the crush defense is lower, but the magic defense is actually better compared to Torva. So I'm not entirely sure where you would use this. Maybe like something in God Wars, for example, though even then I'm not really sure. You probably would use this for the actual encounter itself. Maybe the Yama boss will have high defense, or maybe there's a contract that buffs everything, so everything has high defense. It's interesting that this is here. It remains to be seen what the use case is. And then the defensive stats for range is super low. So there's going to be a cosmetic variant that's going to be fun to grind out as well. That's going to be like the awakened stuff basically for this boss. It's going to make it aspirational content, one-time thing. So you probably won't be farming like a lot of the cosmetics for money, unlike with Tombs of a Masket, unless the unique rates are somehow buffed when you pursue this variant. Who knows though? We don't know how it'll work. We just know that it's coming, assuming that we vote yes on it, which is very hype. This item is extremely controversial, is very new conceptually, and it involves group gameplay, which is A+. And it is the Soulflame Horn. What this horn does is, apparently you need 80 magic, which is peculiar, It requires 25 special attack, which is notable because the previous surge potion we talked about grants you 25% special back every 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a long time. However, the use of the Soul Flame is that your closest allies within 2 tiles have the accuracy of their next melee hit splat, including special attacks, within the next 6 seconds for whatever reason, increased by 100%. But if the target is an NPC, the boosted hit splat always hits. Applying this effect to an ally will also apply to you, and it costs 25%. If you have like 2 people around you and you guys are using Elder Mauls or Dragon Warhammers or BGSs to lower the defense of the target, then when you activate the special attack for this horn, you will have 100% accuracy, which is very nice. This is very cool. This is like the thing people were asking for the longest time, is the ability to guarantee a defense drain, because when you use a special attack and you hit a 0 and you just whiff completely, it feels really bad and the fight's just worse and you don't have special attack, so all of that sucks. This is a crazy utility weapon, first of its kind, that it affects allies. So again, this encourages group gameplay because it says applying this effect to an ally will also apply it to you, which means if you use it and no one's around, does it make a sound? But yeah, most likely you will need to do this with people, and actually you will need to do this with people, because if you use it and no one's around, it won't make a sound and you won't get the effect applied to you, and that's kind of the whole purpose. So it's not like you can use this, do a surge potion, and then have 100% accuracy for defense draining on your target. You need to do this in a group, which is really good, because now all of a sudden a lot of content, well, not a lot of content, but content like chambers, you might be more inclined to take other people with you as opposed to a solo encounter, because the defense drain is guaranteed now and you'll have someone who will be responsible for using the horn. This is also great for people that need to be carried, quote unquote, or people that are lacking in gear or stats, because they can be designated with the Soulflame Horn task, and that will make it more encouraging for them to be brought along to the higher DPS teams. It's very cool. It's very good. It's the first of its kind. The controversy surrounding it is that Iron Men need to get the drop first before they can benefit from it. I think this was mentioned up here. Ah, there it is. For Irons will be experimenting with the system where you can benefit from somebody's Soulflame Horn, but only if you obtain one for yourself. Hey, so it's me from a different point in time. They released an update on the 17th of March, and they also came out with these cool cosmetics for the armors. Those are really sick too. And maybe this will be the case that they go to production with this design, or they'll change it, but the concept art looks really good. Anyway, the reason why I'm inserting this in here is that I had like a whole rant about how we shouldn't punish Iron Men for being noobs effectively and not being able to benefit from this content. So Jagex felt a bit similar. Players complained that the requirements to obtain their own horn was a good start, but point out potentials like intrusive alt usage that's further from the spirit. I mean, I think the reasoning that I have, well, obviously, because it's my reasoning, but the reasoning that I wanted to give for changing this is that we want to be able to play with our Iron friends. And so they said we've adjusted the restriction from our previous collection log requirement. It will now instead allow the horn to function on irons within designated group content, such as Next Raid's Royal Titan and, of course, Yama. It's pretty good. It's a good compromise, so bad W. But anyway, the Soulflame Horn is going to come out. It's a very, very unique utility item. It's going to shake up a bunch of stuff. And it only applies to melee attacks, so you can't use like the Accursed Scepter or Zerite Crossbow or the Eye of Ayak thing from the Delve boss. You won't be able to use that with this. So keep your ZCBs at home. This is going to be really great for Theater of Blood, Chambers of Xeric, probably Tunes of Damascus. So all the raid stuff that already has social gameplay. This actually gives me a little bit of hope for the future, because there's not really that many use cases where you really want to bring a lot of people with you. Except like Next, I guess, maybe. So hopefully in the future they release even more content that is group-based. Maybe more than 2 people. We'll see. I am hopeful. So they're going to make that better. They're also going to add a mining activity that can act as like a balancing act between either skilling versus PVM for this boss in terms of like a consumable to help make the soul armor. There's going to be like this soul shard thing, and you can get it from mining too. Interesting to see if this will work. Not sure, but in terms of like PVM rewards, it doesn't really bother me because I feel like a lot of the big money will probably come from things like Soulflame and the Soul Armor. It'll be interesting to see how this experiment works for them though. But yeah, overall, it's a very crazy update coming out. Dev charge is unbelievable as an upgrade. Soul Armor is very nice as a side grade and will offer an alternative to Nex, particularly for Iron Man, which is great. That's like one of the last things that bother me about potentially making an Iron Man. So I guess the only thing left is like getting a twisted bow is like the last thing. Like if there was a replacement for that or a way to just like get that extremely quickly, then I would heavily consider making an Iron Man, but as it stands, it's like a ridiculous grind. So yeah, Soul Armor, very cool. Would love to use that and get to see that used in different places. Soulflame Horn is going to be absolutely galactic for a bunch of group content as well. So unbelievable updates. Plus we have the actual boss itself, which is endgame and capable of giving like augmentations or contracts to make the fight even harder, as well as getting a cosmetic variant. So we're going to have aspirational content. All that's going to be really fun for me particularly as well, and I hope to stream a lot of this when it does come out. I just hope we get a release date at some point. It's coming out in the spring, so I expect it to come out like sometime maybe end of next month. Knowing my luck, it'll probably be while I'm on a trip, so unlucky, but it remains to be seen. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, please like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and let me know what your thoughts are on Yama. Super hype, lots of cool stuff happening. This RuneFest is delivering and delivering and delivering. It's great. See you later.